The dungeons of the Red Keep were dark, damp, and silent, except for the distant echoes of the city above. Lord Eddard Stark, Warden of the North, sat in his cell with the weight of betrayal on his shoulders. In the history we know, Ned would meet his fate here, condemned by the false justice of King Joffrey. But imagine another reality, one where the wolf did not bow his head to the executioner, but instead broke free from the lion's grasp. It begins in the dead of night, days before Ned's public sentencing. The city sleeps uneasily under Lannister control, but deep beneath the keep, a shadow moves in the torchlight. The jailer hears a faint knock, turns, and collapses, struck down by a silent figure cloaked in gray. Into Ned's cell steps the last person he expected, Pater Baelish, the man who had once betrayed him in the throne room. But in this version, Baelish has his own plans. "War is coming," he whispers, "and a dead wolf is of no use to me. Alive, you could be very valuable." Whether out of genuine strategy or pure self-interest, Baelish unlocks Ned's shackles and hands him a key to a hidden passage, one of the many secrets he has gathered in his years of whispering through the capital. Ned hesitates. His honor warns him that flight might make him look guilty, but his mind turns to his daughters, Sansa trapped in the Red Keep, Arya missing somewhere in the city. Escape might be the only way to save them both. And so, swallowing his pride, Ned follows Baelish through twisting tunnels that run beneath the castle, built in the days of the Targaryens and forgotten by most. They emerge in the darkened streets of King's Landing, the smell of the Blackwater Bay carried on the breeze. Ned quickly realizes that the hardest part is yet to come. They must slip past the city gates before dawn. Here, fate intervenes in the form of a hooded figure waiting in the shadows. It is Yoren of the Night's Watch, the same man who would later escort Arya from the city in our history. In this version, Yoren has been tipped off to help Ned as well, smuggling him out under the guise of a black brother escorting a criminal to the wall. At the Mudgate, the guards barely glance at them, too tired and bored to question a Night's Watch ranger. By the time the first light of day touches the city, Ned Stark is gone. A dead man in the eyes of the court, a living wolf on the road north. Word of his escape spreads slowly. In the Red Keep, Cersei seethes, knowing that a living Ned Stark is a rallying point for Northern Rebellion. Joffrey rages, demanding his head, but without proof of where he's gone, the Lannisters can only tighten their hold on Sansa as a hostage. For Ned, the journey north is a race against time. Disguised in a black cloak, he rides with Yoren through the Crown Lands, keeping to back roads to avoid Lannister patrols. Every village they pass reminds him of the stakes. Peasants speak in hushed tones of war brewing in the Riverlands, of Tywin's men burning and pillaging. When they finally reach Riverrun, the seat of House Tully, Ned is reunited with his brother-in-law Hoster and learns of Robb's march south with the Northern banners. Here, the course of history shifts dramatically. Instead of being a martyr whose death galvanizes the North, Ned is a living commander, and his presence changes Robb's war entirely. The war councils take on a new tone. Robb, fierce and bold, now has his father's steady hand to temper his strategies. Ned counsels caution, urging that their first priority be the safety of Sansa and Arya. The Tullys, hearing Ned's first-hand account of the Lannisters' treachery, commit fully to the war effort. Even the Freys, ever calculating, hesitate to betray a cause led by the Warden of the North himself. But Ned's escape also comes with risks. In King's Landing, the Lannisters spread word that he fled justice, branding him a traitor and oath-breaker. This gives Tywin the justification he needs to press harder against the Riverlands and attempt to divide the North from its allies. The Crown's propaganda aints Ned not as an honorable man, but as a coward who abandoned his post, a lie that some in the South may believe. Still, the tide of the war begins to shift. With Ned alive, Robb is less reckless, and the Stark-Tully alliance grows stronger. Letters are sent to the Vale, urging Catelyn's sister Lisa to join their cause. Envoys ride to the Stormlands, hoping to bring Stannis or Renly into the fight sooner. The war that once seemed like a desperate act of vengeance now feels like a coordinated campaign with a clear leader at its head. Yet Ned knows that every victory in the field will be meaningless if his daughters remain in the Red Keep. His thoughts turn constantly to Sansa and Arya, trapped in the lion's den. Plans begin to form, risky, dangerous plans that could either reunite his family or bring ruin to them all. And far away in the shadows of the capital, Varys the Spider watches the game change before his eyes. A living Ned Stark, moving north and gathering strength, is a variable he had not accounted for. And in the Game of Thrones, every unexpected piece can tip the board. The wolf has slipped the lion's cage. But how long can he run before the hunters close in? With Ned Stark alive and free, the North's war against the Iron Throne took on a new energy. Word of his escape spread across the Riverlands like fire on dry grass. To the small folk, it was a story of hope, the honorable lord who defied the Lannisters' chains. To the nobles of the North, it was a call to arms from the man they had sworn fealty to for decades. At Riverrun, Robb Stark embraced his father not just as a parent, but as a leader returned from the dead. Their reunion was brief. The war left no time for lingering joy. Council meetings began immediately. With Ned present, the tone shifted from bold strikes to calculated campaigns. Robb argued for swift movement to trap Tywin's army. Ned insisted on securing allies before risking a major battle. One of Ned's first moves was to send envoys to the Vale. His sister-in-law, Lysa Arryn, had hidden behind the safety of the Ares walls, claiming neutrality. But with Ned alive to speak for the cause, and with letters invoking the memory of her late husband, Jon Arryn, the Vale's lords found their resolve stirred. Jon Royce and other powerful bannermen began pressing Lysa to commit knights to the war. In the Stormlands, Stannis Baratheon received a letter from Ned offering a truce and proposing a joint campaign against the Lannisters. In another time, their stiff personalities might have clashed, but here, mutual respect for law and justice created a fragile alliance. If Stannis could be persuaded to march, the war might turn decisively. Meanwhile, in the capital, Cersei Lannister seethed. Sansa Stark became more than just a hostage. She was bait. If the wolf wants his pup, Cersei said to her council, he will have to come to the lion's den. Joffrey, eager to prove his cruelty, demanded Sansa's head be displayed as a warning. Cersei refused, knowing that keeping her alive gave them leverage. Arya, still missing within the city, remained a wild card. Varys, who had already been quietly keeping her safe, recognized that Ned's survival created a new possibility. Both Stark daughters could be used to negotiate peace or provoke war. In the Riverlands, the Starks scored early victories. Guided by Ned's cautious strategy, they avoided the kind of reckless engagement that could lead to disaster. Instead, they struck where the Lannisters were weakest: supply trains, isolated garrisons, overconfident bannermen. The war became a grind for Tywin, who found himself unable to force a decisive battle without overextending. The Red Wedding, as history recorded it, began with Walder Frey's resentment toward Robb. But with Ned at the head of the alliance, the dynamic changed. Lord Walder still bristled at perceived slights, but betraying a war led by the Warden of the North himself, a man with decades of alliances and a powerful, united host, was a far greater risk. For the time being, the Freys stayed loyal. But nothing in war stays simple for long. The Lannisters began working to fracture the rebel alliance. Gold was sent to discontented river lords. Promises of marriage and titles were whispered to the Vale's more ambitious knights. In the south, Renly Baratheon declared his own claim to the throne, threatening to split the Baratheon support Ned had hoped to secure through Stannis. Ned understood the danger. A war on too many fronts would doom them. In a war council lit by flickering torches, he told his lords, "We cannot fight the Lannisters, the Reach, and both Baratheon brothers at once. We must choose our ground and our enemies." His plan was simple. Push for the release of his daughters through negotiation, while securing the loyalty of Stannis before Renly could make his move. But every raven from King's Landing carried more troubling news. Joffrey's behavior grew more erratic, his cruelty making even some of his own court uneasy. Cersei tightened her grip on the city's politics, while Varys and Baelish maneuvered in the shadows, and always the threat of Sansa's execution hung over Ned's head like a blade. Then came the breakthrough, or perhaps the bait. A message arrived from the capital, bearing the seal of the Queen Regent. It offered a meeting under a flag of truce. Ned could come to the capital with a small escort to negotiate his daughter's release in exchange for a ceasefire. His council erupted with arguments. Some saw it as an opportunity. Others saw it as a trap. Robb was firmly against it, but Ned's desire to save his children was stronger than his fear. "I will go," Ned said finally, "but I will not walk into their den without a plan to walk out again." The plan was risky. The Vale's knights, under Jan Royce, would ride south in secret to positions just beyond the capital's reach. The River Lords would feign withdrawal to lure Lannister scouts away from the main roads. If the meeting turned hostile, Ned would have a path of escape. As winter's first snowflakes drifted over the Riverlands, Ned set out for King's Landing, his escort a mix of Stark guards and trusted men from House Tully. Along the road, they passed burned villages, evidence of the war's toll. Every step toward the city tightened the knot in Ned's chest. When the spires of the Red Keep finally came into view, Ned saw them not as symbols of royal power, but as the gilded cage from which he had once escaped. Now he was walking back toward it willingly, for the sake of his daughters and perhaps for the fate of the North itself. At the city gates, Lannister guards waited. Beyond them, the streets swarmed with small folk curious to see the man who had defied the crown and lived. As Ned passed beneath the shadow of the gatehouse, the noise of the crowd faded in his mind. All he could hear was the steady beat of his own heart. Somewhere inside the Red Keep, Sansa was waiting. Arya, if she still lived, was somewhere in the city's maze. Cersei Lannister was preparing her game, and in the quiet halls beyond the throne room, a sealed letter sat on a table in Varys's chambers, addressed to Ned Stark, but never meant to reach him. The moment he opened it, the war would change forever.